You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kat Ventura, executive producer of Teka Teka News. In the past few weeks, we've been featuring a series from our other podcast, A Better Normal, called Ang Ating Kwentong Klima, which talks about climate change and what this means for Filipinos. In previous episodes, we learned how climate change affects everyone: farmers, fisherfolk, indigenous people, and other local communities. But the question still stands: how do we create more urgency surrounding climate change? In this fourth and last episode from this series, we realized that the best storytellers and communicators are not the scientists, but the community members who've been personally affected by climate change.
Did you know that the Philippines had been warming at 0.1 degrees Celsius per decade from 1951 to 2015? At mas mabilis pa ang pagtaas ng nighttime temperatures natin, 0.15 degrees Celsius per decade. Ayon yan sa Pag-asa. Buti sana kung lumalakas din ang electric fan. Kaso, 3 setting lang yun, di ba? And this warming will continue depending on how much greenhouse gases we emit. It's a range of 0.9 degrees to 2.3 degrees Celsius by around 2036 to 2065. Malapit na yun. Architect Arlene Lusterio is leading Dantaon, a project that creates visual renditions of what 5 communities would look like 100 years from now based on climate projections.
Yeah, so this is one graphic translation of an island. I think this is part of Manicani Island.
Manicani is an island in Giwan, Eastern Samar, among those hardest hit by Super Typhoon Yolanda in 2013.
You can see before, the island, what's visible, and then say after 100 years, what could happen. So significantly, because of sea level rise, malaki talaga yung mawawala. And yet people don't know about this because what's 100 years? We are more concerned about the present, and it's so difficult for them to understand what could happen to them in the far future. But with these translations, it brings to the consciousness of the people, especially those people in those sites who will be affected, what could possibly happen. It could make them start thinking and be more aware.
Architect Arlene is now gathering volunteers to make these graphic translations and to document the stories on the ground from communities who are already affected by climate change. Because, she says,
people don't believe it if they don't feel it. We always learn from experience. If you don't experience it, ang tagal nating matuto.
At hindi tayo pwedeng maghintay na maranasan pa natin to bago tayo kumilos. Mahalaga ang trabahong ginagawa ni Architect Arlene. Mahalaga ang pag-visualize. Mahalaga ang pagkukwento. At mahalaga ang mga salita.
Communicating it in a language that could be understood by the people is very important. And we have learned that lesson when you have all these reports, what Doc Faye presented, people would not be able to grasp what climate change is.
That's attorney Leslie Cordero. She's a senior disaster risk management specialist at the World Bank.
The most powerful storytellers are not the scientists, are not the specialists or experts or professionals. They are the community members, the people who were affected. And we have tested this when we were trying to pilot a training program to encourage local governments to prepare recovery plans and rehabilitation plans even before a disaster happens. So, di ba, mahirap yung sabihin mo sa kanila na kailangan natin mag-prepare because ang dami pa nilang kailangan gawin. And what we found very helpful was that when we had people who were affected by Typhoon Yolanda raising their hands and saying, if I will prepare now, I will have a better chance that I will get funding the moment a disaster hits, the moment the next major typhoon or earthquake lands, because I am ready. And we also heard this from local chief executives mayors who were affected by Typhoon Ulysses, Rolly, and Quinta, the more recent ones. And we also had people who were affected by the pandemic. And now, when they tell the story, it's not just about one large-scale disaster. They were also talking about how to prepare for compounding shocks.
Architect Arlene.
People learn from experience. Kasi ang theory, hindi talaga ganun it doesn't move people to action.
But Dr. Faye has this reminder.
Another area where they're very experienced, for example, with typhoons is Batanes. And so they've built their houses and their communities, they know what to do if there's an incoming typhoon. So it also helps to listen to their experience, to their knowledge. See, the sharing of best practices, but it's also important to know that what works for them might not necessarily work for other communities. So it's good to have an idea of what the others are doing, but to also see what their local context is.
There are so many ways that we can help communities imagine what the future can look like so that they can prepare and adapt today. We already heard the hard facts earlier. Global warming is a reality. It's just a matter of how bad it'll get. Kaya kailangan talagang magsama-sama ng iba't ibang sektor para tugunan ito.
And that was today's episode feature of the A Better Normal podcast. With global warming getting worse each day, it was great to see how these specific feature episodes garnered many listens in the past few weeks. If you were one of those who enjoyed these snippets, we're sure you'll love listening to the full stories from Ang Ating Kwentong Klima. Just search for A Better Normal in your favorite podcast app or click the link in the description of this episode. This series was supported by the Oscar M. Lopez Center for Climate Change Adaptation in partnership with Asia Society Philippines. Again, I'm Kat Ventura. This episode was edited by Alfred Blanco. Follow Teka Teka News wherever you listen to podcasts or listen for free on YouTube. Maraming salamat po.